Okay, this is a video of the description of the solar heat collector and a partial description of the electric ground. What we're looking at here is the housing for the solar heat collector, as well as the Fresnel lens, which has got a diffuser cover on it right now. But the Fresnel lens sits on top of the housing as so. Down here we use a battery to power the motors right now. This is the motor for east and west movement, which moves it on the track. And then underneath this cover, we have the motor for vertical upwards and downwards movement. And we'll have a closer look at this motor works very similar to a winch. So it's got a couple of cables, or one cable goes up from the winch all the way up. That's the motor. It's a double reduction gear motor, and the cable goes all the way up to a pulley and then comes back down. Now the reason why we did this is because there was a little too much strain on the power electric window motor, so we had to make it so it could move the cable a little bit easier. So it's very slow going up and down, but does the job quite well. And it works like a seesaw. So as the cable tightens and the winch pulls, it pulls the back side of the frame down, which causes the Fresnel lens to face upwards and go up to follow the sun. And when the cable comes down, the solar heat collector comes down as well. In the back here, we have a plate that is holding the kaboomer on the inside of the housing, and we have the adjustment tubing for adjusting the length of the kaboomer, how close it's sitting to the Fresnel lens. Now on this side we have the peristaltic pump, but we're going to take a quick look on the inside here to see the kaboomer, where it sits. It's kind of difficult to see. We have other video that shows it a little clearer, but we're kind of looking through the plexiglass. But take my word for it, the kaboomer is back there with the tubing hooked up to the inlet and outlet port. And so the inlet port is this tubing that's hanging out the bottom here, the silicon tubing. That's where the heat transfer fluid is pumped in. It goes through the kaboomer and then comes out this vacuum jacketed tubing you see here. And as it comes out the tubing, it goes into the hot side of the electric crown. So you've got the hot side of the tubing and the peristaltic pump, and they also have the cold side of the tube. And you'll see it's all a closed loop system, so the cold side of the tubing wraps around, and as the peristaltic pump turns clockwise, it pumps the fluid, the cold fluid, through the tubing all the way up to the electric crown. You can see on this side where the hot side, the tubing comes out, and these have special flaps. It pumps in to the bottom of the kaboomer on the inside of the housing, and then it heats it up and then puts it through the vacuum jacketed tubing into the electric crown, where we make the electricity. And then it comes out of the electric crown and comes right back down into the system, goes through the pump again, and the process repeats. Every time that it gets up to temperature, a sensor inside the kaboomer tells the peristaltic pump to turn on. It's pumping the fluid through the vacuum jacketed tubing and then into the electric crown. Now the next thing that we're going to look at here is how the lines run for the cold side of the peristaltic pump. As I mentioned, this is the cold side, and it uses a copper coil for cooling the cool liquid as it gets pumped in the electric crown. So as the peristaltic pump spins clockwise, it pumps it through this tubing all the way up to the top of the electric crown. And once it goes to the top, of course, it goes through the copper coil on the inside of the electric crown. comes back, the fluid comes back out the bottom of the tubing, and then goes through the cooling coil all the way down. When it gets to the bottom, it comes out and gets pumped back up into the peristaltic pump, and it's also a closed loop system, so it just continues to pump that way. And that's about it for the entire system. It's pretty straightforward. There's a pivot post that the Fresnel lens pivots on.